Hope everyone is good today. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Looking at seeing as people arrive, we'll give it a minute before we get started here. Got a few things to tell you about some upcoming projects and the weeks ahead, and then we'll get right into our lesson today. And again, as always, if you're on or available, pop into the chat box and let us know you're there so we can say good morning. And good morning, Laverne. And I want to, jump right into the things that we're going to be doing today. Good morning, Dora. I've got one picture to show you. If you will look carefully at this quilt that Linda made, if you look into the corners, inside of that is some crumb quilting. So she tried out how to do the crumb quilting and put it into this quilt. I think it's absolutely lovely, and what a cheerful quilt it is. And Linda, I thank you for giving it a shot and sharing it with all of us. So thank you so much for that. And then I want to give you a little heads up on a couple of things that are coming. One is that we're next week I am going to share with you how to do the easy piecing grid. And it's a product that's out right now that makes doing some quilts and things much easier. And this is what the package looks like. And one of the some years ago, there was a real surge for watercolor quilts, and learning to do those easily, putting all those squares together and keeping them organized was we use gridded flannel, different kind of things that we used. And so I'm excited to show you this new product. And now with the pixelated quilts that are fun and on the market at this point in time, that's going to be just a huge help to those of us who want to do that, and even for like Bargello quilts and other ones that we need to keep our fabrics in order, and this is a great way to do that. So that'll be next week. And then I believe that's the next week is our anniversary, and so I'm taking that day off. It's a significant one for us. And so anyway, we then the following week in August, can you believe it's August? Ugh, at the end of August coming up that I'm talking about. I'm going to do a project with Drunkard's Path. And there are templates in the store, the quilt store, that you can pick up of Drunkard's Path. And if you want to work on that, and if you've not tried it before or want to do that, I'm going to show you a couple of ways to do that. But then I want to share with you doing a kind of a fall Halloween type quilt, and this is called, I think it's Autumn, and it just went out of my head. I can't remember exactly what it's called. But anyway, this is the quilt that we're going to be doing for our fall quilt right after that. So starting right away in September. So I'm excited to work on that. And there's some tips and tricks with each of the things that you see and the blocks that are in there. So that's what's coming up. But today, I am finally finishing up our little trip around the world with a Korean pajagi. And this has it really intrigued me, because there have been times when I wanted to hide seams, but yet I wanted the opposite side, to be as nice as the front, and I would work really hard at that. And this is a double-sided way to do that. And so with that, I'm going to drop down to my table here, and I just want to walk you through this pajagi. And I'm just going to start with let's get started with this. My sample is not the greatest. I've been having some trouble with my hands, and so my stitches aren't as wonderful as I would love them to be. But as you can see, this is a double-sided. Uh, the seams are completely enclosed with this, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's see-through, and they call these wrapping cloths. And my understanding is that mostly what these cloths are used for is to cover their food at their table, to take gifts, to wrap the gifts in when they give gifts. And they use them as window, curtains. I won't really say curtains because they're more of an art piece than I think, at least of what I've read and seen with the modern pajagi. But it's a beautiful craft. And there's two ways that I have read that they go about this. One is that they have a project in mind, and as quilters, oftentimes this center part of a pajagi pattern, and there really are no patterns because it's whatever you want it to be, will be a simplified quilt block is what I saw most of all. Like, for example, like a 9 patch, a star, something of that nature would be in the center of this, or half square triangles, that type of thing. I just drew something quick. It's not really a pattern per se of much of anything, but then because that's kind of the second way they go about it, they will cut and kind of design as they go. So they'll start with a patch, create another rectangle, square, and they will add that to it and then continue adding. And that's really how I started with this, and then felt that I wanted to put this down. So if you want a little bit more order and a little bit more pattern to what you're doing, then you could draw this out. So that is a possibility for that. Then the things that you need to make this work is you're going to need your fabrics, first of all. And unfortunately, all of the kits are sold in the store, and because they've run out of some of that, I don't believe they're going to have any more of the quilts available. But for those of you who are lucky enough to get these incredible linens in these luscious colors, I cannot wait to do more of this. And I mean, the colors and the feel of this fabric is absolutely phenomenal. So for those of you who have it, wonderful. You're going to love it. And then you're going to need a Hera marker, and this creases the fabric so that it can be folded easily, and helps you work with it. Don't absolutely need this, but I can tell you from the experience of working with it, it's quite a handy tool to have, and I use it for other quilting projects as well. Then you are going to want some thread. The threads that they use a variety of different threads, and it depends on their project and what they want it to look like. I have here some Valdani number 12, and this is what I saw most often being used for pajagi, and that I read about a weight like this. All right, this was the only one that I had in that weight, but I had a lot of number 8 embroidery floss. Embroidery floss works really wonderful too. One strand of embroidery floss. I have my needles with some thread in it prepared, and then just because it's getting harder to always thread those little needles, Clover has an embroidery threader, and you can also get this at the quilt store. And what a help! It's strong enough. I hopefully you can see it. It's let me put it over here, but it's got some a little bit of weight to it, and it's pretty sturdy. So it's going to take that thicker thread through those larger needles and make that project a little bit easier for you. Then the other thing that I'm starting to find helpful is because as I'm working, the thread will sometimes get twisted, and that's where the beeswax comes in. And so, if you have it, that's helpful to the thread to run that through the beeswax and get a little bit of that with you. Then on mine, because I was, starting with it, and I really didn't want it to show that much at the beginning. I thought, even though the thread and the stitching, if your stitching is even, you're going to have this beautiful piece to work with. I just used regular sewing thread, so it was light, and you could use something that the stitches really don't show that much, but it's kind of an embellishment feature if you use it and work with it. So I have cut a rectangle and I have cut a square, and I want to share with you how we're going to go about creating this double double-sided pajagi piece. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to mark a 1/2 inch on one of the squares, and you're going to do that with your Hera marker and rub that back and forth a couple of times. And I don't know if on camera you can really see that, but it's there. And then on the other side, and it doesn't matter which side that you start with, and this side, is this fabric is double-sided, so which kind of makes it easier. And for me, it was a little harder at the same time, keeping the right sides together. I think you can see the crease a little bit better in the darker fabric. All right, so then with that crease now, you're going to fold this over on that crease line. And it simply folds and creases exactly as it's supposed to on there. All right. Now, depending on the fabric that you're using, if you're using this linen, and I think the Korean, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the fabric is called Remi, or Remi, and it's a little bit stiffer than this. I love the softness and the way it drapes, but you could, take your iron and drop that on there if that, helps you, feel a little bit better about that crease, but you really don't need to because it creases beautifully. Then you're going to take and do the same thing with your other piece. All right. And then these two pieces are going to be lined up, and I'm going to drop a pin in, and you really want to use a very fine pin. I suggest the Clover glass head pins, very fine, or the Quilter Select very fine glass head pins as well. So now you've got, and if you look, you can see that those two seams are in the inside of the piece that you're going to work with. Now to get started, I'm going to go ahead and use a very dark thread for the sake of the camera, and I'm going to go in, and I want to bury my knot. So I'm going to pull that needle right up and bury it in here. Now, here's where I want to talk about a couple of different things. As you know, we have things a little bit differently than they have. You could put a touch of glue in there if that helped you to feel more confident in that. Honestly, it doesn't need it. The pin and this is perfectly fine. And for me, the glue would get in the way, and it would also stain and show through the fabric. So I probably wouldn't do that. And with my stitches being a little crazy these days with my struggling a little bit with my hands, you could put this tape again right, because you only want to pick up a couple of strands. So again, this is washi tape, and this would keep your stitches even. And as long as you're coming up right above the tape, you're only going to get a couple of threads in as you sew this. And so I'll put the tape there for a minute. Then you're going to come straight from this front one. I came up with my knot on the front side, and the tape that moved a little on me. I might need to snag there we go. Because you want to keep your fabrics together. And so coming up, I'm going to remove this for now, just so you can see better, but that's another option for you. All right, and we're just gonna do see how the thread can knot, even though this little stuff, I'm just gonna trim that off because it does get in the way. And so you want to keep your stitches as even as possible, going straight across. It's kind of like a whip stitch, a hem stitch, and you can get you can get going pretty quickly. I'm trying to go slow, take my time, so that my thread doesn't, knot on me. And the second thing that I want to share with you about the thread, and I'm getting those little pieces in there, is that you don't want to pull it too tightly, because when we get this done, as you're going to see, and this is a great thread, especially if you want to, keep your stitches, if your hand stitching is staying even and coming across, that's fabulous. And I think that I'm getting further. I started out and here is something else that I noticed as I was doing this. Sometimes the end of my thread gets clumpy like that, and you just saw it get in the way and cause a knotting as I come, and then to get that out, it pulls a little bit. So if that starts to happen as you pull your thread through your fabric a few times, go ahead and snip that off, so it doesn't do that. And so you want to pull firmly, but you don't want to over pull. And that's going to be a very skinny stitch there. All right. So when you're not trying to do this on camera and make it look as easy as it really is, easy as it and fun as it really is. This is really a fun thing to do in on a project, I have to say. If I, want to pick up some handwork and do this, how fun. Yeah, don't poke yourself with the needle. All right, we're coming to the end, and now I want to bury my thread, or my, excuse me, not my thread, my knot. And as you can see, um, my start was okay, and this is where I was struggling a little bit with the thread, and then I got back to doing pretty well. So this isn't going to win any awards, for sure. So now I want to take my thread and I want to go back in to the inside and do a knot. So that's buried on the inside of my piece. Cut that off. And this should lay flat for you, okay? And, it's one side, as you can see when you're looking at that. The stitches are straight up and down, and this side, they're at a slant. So the next step in this process is that you're going to want to, and I'm going to take, just so that I have an edge on that. This is a 1/4 inch, and so I'm going to put my 1/4 inch right along that seam line. I'm going to take my Hera marker, run that a couple of times across that, and then on this one, you're going to now fold that over, and it's going to crease exactly as it should. And then once you've got that folded over, then you're going to lay it down, flatten that out, and I'm getting a lot of these little threads today. I didn't have that issue too much before. So you're going to lay that flat. All right. And then you're going to take your Hera marker again, and you can either use the ruler again on that 1/4 inch, or you can just take the Hera marker and run it along the edge of that a couple of times. And then that is going to get folded over. And again, you would start with your knot. You would sew that entirely down. And once you've done that, then you have a completely enclosed seam. So as you can see, both sides, there is no exposed seams. All right. And the same thing would be done, as you're crossing here. It's no different. You're going to do that the same all the way through your piece. And on one side, it is going to be at a slant, and the other side, and you could press this if you wanted to with the iron. Let me get that completely flat there. One side of this is going to be straight up and down, and then this would have the slanted on it. This side we slanted here, and you would have the straight up and down on this side, and that's the way it's supposed to be. So um, these stitches, about an eighth of an inch, or somewhere between an eighth and a 16th, is I thought was a good place to take the stitches good distance apart with that. Now I want to show you one other thing that I thought was beautiful, and I am excited about trying this on a couple of pieces that I get done. I want to make another one with larger pieces and create a type of, design in it. So you can draw, whatever you want as far as design. Here is a leaf shape, and this is called a pinch stitch, and I just thought it was absolutely a beautiful embellishment. And so you've again used that Hera marker, and it makes the folding of the fabric incredible as you're going around. And you'll want to take a little extra time with the Hera marker and make sure that point comes out really well. So I've got this pinched, and I might, and it's a gentle curve, and there's two ways that you can stitch on this this line. So I don't know if you can see that leaf pattern, and use the Hera marker over it a couple of times. I'm going to use a smaller thread this time just so you can see the difference in that. And if you don't want necessarily your stitches to show a ton, then, and you want to have some color on this, you would come up again. I'm going to come up in that point of my leaf. And this is when you line your piece. Now on this, I could have left, this open and just done the 1/4 inch mark if I was going to line this with a backing on it. You can also do these stitches once that you have this folded over like this. Instead of hand stitching, you could top stitch this with the sewing machine. And this is what is considered modern pajagi. And so you could actually do this with your sewing machine if you did not want to do it by hand and use, just a straight stitch, putting it right along the edge, or you could even probably use a decorative stitch if you wanted to do that. So that could go by machine. But this pinch stitch for embellishment I thought was wonderful. It's a running stitch. And so I'm going to come up and then right along the edge of that. Again, what helps this as you are pinching this along is keeping your stitches fairly even as you simply do a running stitch along that pinched fold that you made. Simply, a careful running stitch. When it's done, you have this lovely embellishment, and you can see the color, but it's not overly dramatic on that. But the other thing that you can do with this pinch stitch is the same stitch that we did before, where you pinch it together and you do that. That whip stitch, hem stitch. And and however much color you want to show, however, you want to embellish it, the thread is becomes part of the embellishment. And so as you can see on camera, hopefully you can, this gives you a little bit more color, a little bit, more texture to it. This pinches it up, but it's a running stitch along there. So either one, and you can create your own designs. Use a design from, an embroidery book or something, because you can certainly run your Hera marker along it because you can see through it. And so that is Pojagi in its simplest absolute form, that you can do. So again, just to go through this one more time. These are not even, but the other thing that I was reading up on it is that they would take these patches of fabrics, and when they got to the end, they would trim it and put the next piece on and continue to go with their wrapping cloths. And this side, or whichever side you want to, one side a half an inch of a line, the other side a quarter of an inch. Press those together, put the raw edges to the inside, hold them together, hem stitch it. Then you're going to run the Hera marker along the seam, fold that over, and then pinch the other side, fold that together, and do the other side, and your seam is completely enclosed in that. I want to look and see if you have any comments or questions before we go. Should all the fabrics used be the same weight? I would say that would probably be helpful if you're using, cotton, because this certainly works with cotton as well. You would certainly want all of it to be pretty close to that same weight. What was the first seam allowance creased on the cream piece? It was a half an inch, and then when you fold that over, it covers that quarter inch. So your seam allowance is still a half an inch. So one side is a half an inch, the other side is a quarter inch, and you can see that that's what I've done here. Okay, so this was done at a quarter, this was done at a half, then this gets folded over, and then folded over, creased, undone that. So is it a whip stitch? Pretty much, yes. Whip stitch, hand stitch, they come in different names. I like clumpy as a sewing term. Well, good. I use strange words sometimes. How close are the stitches? Like I said, they're about an eighth of an inch, or somewhere between an eighth and a 16th. Hair marker could also be called a bone folder. Yes. What about half kits for the pajagi for those that just want to try something new? That I will pass on and see if that's even a possibility. I do not know. And somebody else mentioned half kits as well. And the autumn quilt will have a kit, and those kits can, I believe, they will be done closer to the end of the month, and you'll be able to purchase those kits. And the fabrics are absolutely beautiful. So I do hope that you'll jump on that, because it's a wonderful fall throw. Gridded mesh that we use for those. Oh, you're talking about, yeah, what's coming up. And the quilt show has a gridded flower vase kit that for the projects that I'm doing next week. So you might want to check out that quilt Here is there's a link on there, so please check that out. So if there's no other questions on the Pajagi, then it looks like stained glass, and when you put it up to the light, it's absolutely stunning. And I hope that you will give it a shot and try it out, and especially if you got this kit. This fabric is fabulous, and create your pattern as you go. Work on those stitches. The tape works pretty well if you really want to keep those stitches even. And because I'm not crazy about how this particularly looks right now, and so I'm gonna redo some of this, but this is certainly not going to go to waste on that. But I'm going to wait till my hands feel a little bit better before I tackle this, because this fabric is luscious on that. So for those of you who got a kit, wonderful. And then the kits for the autumn quilt will be coming up. Go ahead and you can order the gridded fabric. You will use it. It'll be absolutely great with that. And also for the end of the month, I will be doing the Drunkard's Path and the templates for Drunkard's Path. If you want to have those listed, then I would for certain order that. Okay? So, fun day today. Try this out. Check it out. Do that. And I will see you next week, and we'll talk some gridded fabric. So, have a great one. Bye-bye.